All right, everyone. Now we have to talk about the drug war again, specifically in reference to Portland, where they have literally decriminalized fentanyl. It doesn't seem to have gone over so well. Link in the description, archived, of course. By the way, Portland is falling apart. There are homeless people, randomly spazzing out on drugs on the street and so forth. I've seen this in New Orleans as well. If you go anywhere near Bourbon Street, you're probably going to see someone passed out. But generally speaking, this doesn't really cause a problem. They draw up on the side, they get high or they get wasted, and I mean, that's technically the same thing. And then they pass out, and people generally don't fuck with them. They don't have anything to rob anyway, so it doesn't really matter. That being said, I am opposed to the drug war. I am also opposed to the use of drugs, generally speaking. Now, if you're talking smoking a bowl or something or taking a couple of drinks, that's different. I do not believe that people should be encouraged to use mind-altering substances, generally speaking. I have used, and I'm no hypocrite, I've used LSD, I've used psilocybin, I've used amanitas, I've used all sorts of things under the sun. Everything except the hard drugs. I never tried any of them. I've used salvia and morning glory and a few others. I've used a lot of psychedelics, especially in my time. And of course, like pretty much everyone else, of course I've smoked weed. Here's my thoughts though. It should be discouraged generally. If it's being used for a spiritual purpose, which is what I was using it for, that's one thing. I never got addicted to any of these substances. But fentanyl is massively addictive, and I was thinking to myself the other day about how absolutely retarded drugs have become. Because it's not the same as it was like, 20 years ago. It's like, hey, weed is pretty good. Yeah, man. I like to get high. I like to smoke a ball. How can we improve upon this? Oh, we'll extract it. We'll call it dabbing. That's a great idea. Yeah, because weed apparently isn't enough, to get you high. I don't know what your tolerance level is at that point. Cocaine is pretty good. I like to snort a line every once in a while, but it's just not fucking powerful enough. Oh, let's invent crack. And that was the CIA's doing mainly, by the way. This is not a conspiracy theory. Oh, and I really like heroin, but I would like something stronger. And then fentanyl comes along. Cheaper, stronger, much more likely to kill you, by the way. I believe there is another research chemical developed in China, of course, by the way, at the moment that's even stronger than fentanyl. So, for all of you dope heads out there that want to die, China has, they've got you covered. It's probably even cheaper than fentanyl is. I can't wait until that enters the weed supply and kills a bunch of people. Drugs are perfectly fine used. I mean, disclaimer, I'm not encouraging you to use them. Drugs are perfectly fine used in certain dosages for certain reasons. Addiction is when you begin using it to suppress stress, mainly. And this is what happens to people who are passed out on the street, Bourbon Street, on fentanyl and stuff like that. And nobody will help them, by the way. Portland, meanwhile, is literally falling apart. If you look at some of the videos from Portland, all you see is a wasteland of people who are acting like goddamn zombies because they've been injecting, drugs all day. And that's the only thing that they do. They take their injection, pass out for a while, suck a cock for 10 bucks, get another rock or another injection or something. When I was in New Orleans, for example, and New Orleans is nowhere near as fucked up as Portland. I saw like they had left clean needles like on the trash can. And I'm like, I'm looking at it like this because I mean, I'm from small town Vermont, so you see some weird shit here in Rutland, admittedly, but nothing on this order. It's trust me, it's not actually one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. And they had like, clean needles, possibly clean, I suppose, just left on the side of the goddamn trash can like as a public outreach sort of thing to prevent people from having to share needles, I suppose, or something like that, or having to buy their own because they're destitute and can't. And I'm thinking to myself, what kind of sick society do we live in where this sort of thing is necessary? I do not have any problem with people using drugs. I don't care. If you're on your own property, on your own time, and you want to smoke a bowl of weed, who gives a shit? It's not going to inebriate you any more than a couple of beers anyway, so I don't really give a fuck. Just don't go driving after you've done that. I've known people that have driven while under the influence, and I'm like, that's a terrible idea. You know, DUI does exist, by the way. You know, you smoke some weed. Maybe you went into your garden and dropped acid. That's fine. You're not hurting anybody. You're not hurting society. You're just taking a few hours off and looking at the pretty colors or something like that. When you get to the point, though, where you're shooting fentanyl, and passing out in the street and so forth, that's a sad statement about society now, isn't it? That there are people that are so despondent that they feel the need to do this. And they've fallen completely through the cracks, by the way. The system will not help them. What we need to do is bring back asylums. I'm not saying that a person should be conceived of as ill or bad or wrong or criminal in nature simply because they got addicted to drugs. But they do need help, quite clearly. When you get to the point where smoking a couple of bowls is like, that's just your breakfast, basically, that's a little bit of a problem. At some point, potentially, individuals engage in criminal behavior to fund their habit. Now, that's actually a misconception. It's not actually common, but I think that we should offer treatment, help to these people. I think we should take mercy on them. I think we should pity them. I think that if a person has become so sad, so lonely, or whatever the hell it happens to be, that they're dosing themselves with goddamn heroin on a daily basis, I feel sorry for them. I don't feel any anger towards them at all, and I have no problem, by the way, with my tax money going to help treat them, as opposed to buying bullets for killing people in Yemen. I would much rather stay to home and keep the money there and help my fellow Americans. This makes sense to me. Just saying. Jesus. If you look, take the link in the description. Portland is a wasteland. It's been absolutely decimated. Street after street of people. They've got like tents and rags and stuff like that, and they're just all strung out, and the EMTs can't even goddamn keep up with it. And that's because they decriminalized fentanyl. I would decriminalize it too, but I would say, hey, instead of putting you in jail, you're going to the goddamn psych ward. You're going to the goddamn hospital. And we're going to get you treatment and hope that you get better. Now, the likelihood of them actually getting better is less than 50-50. I acknowledge that. Once a person is heavily addicted, especially to an opioid or cocaine or something like that, it's very difficult to get them off of it. And the withdrawal can be severe, maybe they become violent and so forth. It can be a big problem. But we have to try because there's no alternative. What are we going to do? Throw them in prison? As soon as they get out, because they didn't go through any rehab program, they're just going to use more drugs. We leave them on the street, eventually they'll kill themselves. They'll simply die. They'll die of a drug overdose or something like that. Most of these people are blameless. They didn't just randomly one day say, yeah, you know what? I want to take up a crack addiction. That doesn't happen. That's not how it happened. They went through some terrible stress in their life. They've got PTSD, something like that. Maybe they're a veteran in some cases. They've seen some shit. Watched three of my best friends get their heads blown off. So yeah, I took something to ease the pain. And then unfortunately I became addicted. Many such stories. More often than not, it is not the person's own initiative, but they became addicted to drugs. I have nothing but sympathy. I know I sound like a bleeding heart liberal to some of you, but having used drugs in the past and suffered with, addiction problems myself, I know how it feels. You don't just magically one day decide, hey, I'm going to become an alcoholic. Hey, I'm going to become a heroin addict. That's not the way that it works. So please have a little bit of mercy on these people. And we should get them treatment. We definitely need reform in our drug laws. I don't believe in throwing people in the hoosegow for smoking weed, for example, or dropping acid in their backyard or something like that. But if a person is clearly addicted, I do believe in getting them help. It is, by the way, a hell of a lot cheaper to do that than to put them in fucking jail. So it saves the taxpayers money. It's actually a very good proposition when you think about it. That's about all. Peace out.